We're known for our quality. So basically we manufacture furniture that will last forever. It's basically bomb-proof.
We have a team of absolute champions here, experts in their field in terms of joinery, engineering.
Our furniture is an investment, and it's a quality investment.
You're buying from New Zealand.
Welcome to a Kiwi original. Today on the show, I'm joined by Matt Cooke and Daniel Joblin from Starex Manufacturing. This is a company that is experts at preschool furniture, not just your normal furniture. This is the type of furniture that goes into those preschool centres that kids need. They need to play, they need to be able to sit down, they need to be able to feel comfortable. So this is the company, Starex Manufacturing, that focuses on their needs and obviously the needs of early childhood teachers that are in that environment. So welcome to the show, and thanks very much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you, Ron. Thanks for inviting us.
Appreciate it.
So should we start with you, Matt, on the origin story for Starex Manufacturing? How did the business come about? How long have you been trading for? And what's the backstory here?
Okay, I'll go. So we're actually second owners of Starex since its creation. So I'll first of all go back to 1983, and it was developed by a guy named Dennis Bainbridge, and he started the company. The origin of the name was a little bit weird. There used to be a company in Tauranga called Star Manufacturing. So when that company went basically wrapped up, he decided that he'd call it Starex, being an ex-employee of Star Manufacturing, and that's how the name Starex came about. So when he launched into that, they basically manufactured office furniture, a lot of clubs. There's still a lot of golf clubs, even locally. When I visit them, I can always tend to have a look underneath the chair, and sure enough, I'll probably find a Starex sticker underneath them. It was then sort of in the late 80s that they were approached by a local kindy association to manufacture some furniture for their kindy. Prior to that, usually kindergarten furniture and childcare furniture was sort of manufactured by mum or dad or grandma or granddad. So it was sort of the first time where, I guess, commercial furniture company in New Zealand, was sort of approached to manufacture some furniture. I think they cottoned on to that being quite a niche market, and I think by about the mid-90s, that was solely what they were doing. That's all they were doing. Where we come into the picture, as far as my wife and her parents, we purchased the business in 2006. My wife's mother was working for Starex at the time. Found out about the fact that Dennis and Annette were looking at selling the business, and they approached us, Melissa and I, to see if we'd be interested in going into business. So that's sort of how we started, and that was in 2006. So we've owned the business now for 14 years. It's
interesting, isn't it, how businesses change and morph with different owners, and sometimes the people who work within the business are the ones that can see the biggest potential, because you're inside, you know what's good, you know what's bad, so you can confidently put in an offer knowing where you could potentially take it next. What was it like when you actually took over? Like, you were holding the reins then?
Yeah, it was pretty daunting. Thankfully, Melissa's parents had owned businesses in the past. Melissa and I were actually in Australia at the time. I was working for Virgin Blue. I was there since startup with through the airline industry. So it was definitely a jump left for me as far as a career was concerned. But we sort of, the main reasoning behind it was the fact that, Jenny had experience, knew of the business. The bigger push was Melissa and I grew up in Tauranga. We always wanted to come home, and we kind of realised that working in the airline industry was not really conducive to ever making a return to Tauranga as a career. So we jumped on board with that. And coming from a corporate background in the airline industry, being that Virgin, though, was quite a different company to work for, I guess, than most corporates. It was definitely a different work environment that I had to adapt to, and coming in as sort of one of the directors and sort of just work out how a manufacturing company ticks and how the people think, and basically hit the ground running. Basically trying to learn the product, learn how cabinetry works, how engineering works, and learning about our customer base. It was all a bit of a mad rush, and especially that year in 2006 as well, because soon after we bought the business, there was 20 hours free childcare was introduced by the then Labor government. So we just got very busy very quickly. So that posed some challenges as well.
That's interesting timing, actually, because when you say 2006, that's pre-iPhone, but it's post the internet. So there is connectivity to be able to sell some of your products. But coming from that corporate background, just let's talk a little bit more about that, because for those who aren't in manufacturing, you don't actually get to see it very often. It's not like a retail store. You don't get to go in and see what's happening, what's being made. And it is a very different environment to someone who maybe works in an office and how people work. What was some of the things that surprised you initially, either good or bad?
I guess the good part of it was so diverse. It was so interesting. With our company structure, we sort of have three main departments. We manufacture pretty much 99% of all the products that we sell. So we've got an engineering department that do steel work and woodwork. I mean, it was kind of like going back to school for me. I was back in intermediate school doing sort of metalwork and woodwork. So I had a ball to start with, just learning and watching, and I kind of threw myself into those departments just to sort of learn a part of the trade. The challenge was a little bit, in the manufacturing side, it was just learning to relate to the staff, learning how I came in with a very open door type policy, something perhaps not all manufacturers or people that work in manufacturing are used to. And it took a little while for me to sort of see how they tick and what buttons to push to sort of get engagement and get the most out of the staff. And also there was a little bit of trepidation, I think, from the staff, being that the background that I had in coming into manufacturing, obviously I didn't really know too much. I was basically a sponge ready to soak it all up. So it took a little while, I think. Once I threw myself into everything, it finally sort of opened up some pathways and communication with the staff, and since then it's been all good. And if anything, I can say that my staff are the most brilliant resource that I have, and I rely on them heavily and still do as we go through all facets of the manufacturing process.
I think that's a highly valuable insight, because when you put different sectors and you squeeze them together, so corporate and manufacturing, there's things you can learn from both. There's how you manufacture, how you work as a group on something that has got to obey the laws of physics and health and safety, versus what you can learn in a corporate, which is scale, processes, some of the digitization. I think more manufacturers in New Zealand should invite in either corporates or technology-centric people to be able to give some of those different aspects to it. And I haven't forgot about you, Daniel. We will get onto the design side of things and the actual product. We're just kind of building the picture here, so my apologies for not including you just yet.
Not at all.
So, Matt, that moment where the 20 hours of free childhood early learning centre support from the Labour government, how did that play out in terms of what early childhood centres had to do, and then how did you benefit from that, or how did you go about trying to benefit from it?
It was kind of a double-edged sword. So as I sort of mentioned, we got very busy very quickly. It changed the industry a lot as well. It was a very close-knit industry, but I think at that point, it became a very attractive option for investors to buy into centres. So I think the landscape of the owners and the people that we were dealing with in the childcare industry at the time did change. Not that we really knew, we weren't really into it at that point to create those relationships, apart from the company that already had pre-existing relationships. So we actually blew out from manufacturing. We made to order. So I remember we blew out to around a 14-week turnaround for some of our products. So if customers would phone up and sort of, hey, I want to order 6 chairs, please, we'd have to sort of say, look, it's going to take 14 weeks. So hitting the ground running and trying to learn the business and keep up with that was a real challenging time. A good position to be in. Look, I'd rather be the first business owner and have a situation like that than have it where you're struggling trying to find work. So it had its pros and cons. The con being with that, I think it invited also a bit more competition for us. So over the next 2 years, 2007, 2008, there was definitely increased competition that perhaps the company didn't experience prior to that announcement. And that would have just been with the growth and the growth of the industry. There's definitely been a drive for parents to place their children into childcare and start their education process at a young age. So that's increased enrollment and demand.
So let's now fast forward to now, and it's gone from where you started it with Starex Manufacturing. That was a spin out for someone that you then acquired that business from in 2006. And then from there, other competitors started entering the market as the early childhood centre landscape shifted and changed and grew, and probably through the franchise side of things versus independent childhood centres. What were the things that was standing you apart that you still stand by today? So what are you known for within your customer base?
I think we're known for our quality. So basically we manufacture furniture that will last forever. It's basically bomb-proof. To put that in perspective, I've seen units that have lasted 20 to 25 years plus. They basically just don't break. In fact, I recall from one customer a comment with our stacking chair. They get frustrated because it just doesn't break. They actually want to buy new chairs, but they don't break. So that's one thing that stands us out. And especially with the new competition that we received, there were quite a few that was imported products. It was flat pack product. I don't know if you had experience with flat pack product, but from my experience, it's not actually designed to go into a commercial environment. In actual fact, I mean, even product you purchase from a very famous flat pack furniture distributor, you'll be lucky if it kind of stays in a good solid shape for a good year or two in your living room, and that's barely being used once or twice a day. So, we manufacture our furniture with good techniques. We rebake, in other words, we cut a groove and we glue and screw, or we fix our units together so they're locked tight, and they're basically indestructible. So the thing that developed with our product then, which I found sort of in late 2009, 2010, although our product lasted for 25 years, it didn't age very well. So it looked very old. And that's where the landscape of the market has changed. The competition in childcare has changed. So now it's not a case of just us manufacturing furniture that's going to last for 25 years. We've been working on how to make this product aesthetically survive the rigors of daily childcare life as well.
Very interesting. I'm certainly had a lot of personal experience after living in London for 8 years with that flat pack furniture, it's fantastic because it's optimized to get it through a skinny front door and get it up to your apartment. And you know it's going to last a year, maybe two if you're lucky, and you look after it because you're going to go back to New Zealand, or you're going to shift flats, or you're going to get something different. It's not optimized for something that's going to last for a decade or two. Or you have to think very carefully about what particular piece you purchased. So question then across to you, Daniel, on the design side of it. Yeah. What are all the details that the early childhood centre, the 5-year-old child will never understand, yet it's like the bane of your existence? It's all these details that on their own don't really matter, but when you put them all together, it's what makes Starex furniture Starex.
Oh, detailed question. I appreciate it.
We're starting in deep there, Daniel.
Yeah. I'll try and answer it as best as I can. So I think when we start getting into the design of furniture for that age group, sort of 2 or even 1.5 onto 5 preschool age, we start looking at what we've done in the past or what other people have done in the past. And everyone kind of remembers those old school chairs that you had when you were at primary school. And they were kind of just a bit brown and a little bit lackluster, and maybe they were a bit beaten up. And so what we try to do here at Starex is look at how the child's going to interact with a piece of furniture. If at all possible, build a prototype, see them interact with that piece of furniture. And then I wouldn't say optimize, but really think about how they're going to sit down on it. Is it going to be stable enough for them in the most basic instances? And then is there a way where we can make this furniture better for their experience? Is there going to be something that they don't even notice that they see that is going to live with them for the rest of their life? Is there small detail on the edge of the plywood? Is that going to just slightly improve their visual aesthetic, their appreciation of things in general? And then in addition to that, once we've looked at the aesthetic, we'll go back and we'll talk to joinery, we'll talk to engineering, and we'll make sure that the product we're about to make is going to last as long as we need it to make. And that is a big challenge for us because the parts do need to last a really long time. And so there's a lot of to and fro, a lot of circles going around. Like I'll go talk to joinery, they'll come talk to me, I'll go back talk to joinery, just to make sure that we're making a product that we can stand behind. Someone's going to still have it and pass it down to another school in the 25 years' time or something like that.
So let's then talk about one of those pieces of furniture. If you were to take like the general store or the hideaway chair or one of you choose the product. What are some of the elements on one of those key products that you sell into early childhood centres?
Okay, so a classic chair. We actually did what we call a standard stacking chair, which is just a chair. And you'd think that just a chair is a simple thing to put together, but lots of architects have hung their hats up on a chair and really pushed it quite hard, and a lot of designers as well. We've taken our classic chair, we've really analysed it from, I suppose, from a lean engineering perspective. What can we take away? What can we add to it? What can we add to it that doesn't increase our costs, but aesthetically and functionally really improves the look of the chair? And we've come up with something in the new range, which isn't quite yet released, but maybe by the time this podcast goes live.
Next week, hopefully.
Yeah. That we think really solves a lot of those issues around manufacturability, aesthetics, and in specific details. What we're really trying to do is use the wood that we're using, which is a really high-quality birch plywood, and show the ply grains within it, really utilize the natural timber itself, and really, and this chair is made of timber and metal, and so really use nice, really good natural quality materials like the oils that we use to oil the edges, the screws that we use, even down to the screws that we use. Like I will not use a certain type of screw head because I just don't think it looks aesthetically right. It's a little bit of there's a bit of a to and fro because you go into engineering and they're being quite pragmatic. This screw works, and I'm going, but it's not pretty enough.
I love it. And that's the detail. It's like the Johnny Ive of early childhood centre furniture. What difference do you think that makes if a parent's coming in, going to pick up their child, or maybe even at a more important point where they're not sure where they're going to leave their child? They haven't chosen their early childhood centre yet, and they look in and they see all of these chairs. What difference does it make when you're looking at the whole interior picture?
Yeah, so that's part of the research we did. So this new range that we're about to launch has been about 18 months in the making.
A lot of work.
And part of our early analysis that we looked at was just the stakeholders in our furniture. So who are the key people? And parents actually came out really high on the list as far as people that we need to appeal to and that we're designing this furniture for. So, when parents are looking around at a childcare centre, I think they always have the mindset that they want to go to a centre, have a chat to the teachers, make sure that their ideals, their philosophies are in line with their parenting and everything else. That's always the intention. Unfortunately, most human beings, when we enter an environment, we'll use our eyes first and we'll make assessments and judgments on that. So sometimes I think there could be a fantastic fit for a parent and a child in a childcare centre, but there could be a barrier put in the way just purely from the environment that is set in, and that engagement might not happen. So we look at our furniture as one part of an element that makes up a childcare centre into being that link, to break down the door at the barrier so that that teacher or that owner can talk to the parent and that connection can be made. That's how we see a big part of our drive and the design of what we do.
And to back that up, when we started off with just me as the design team, and we've grown to 3 designers full time. One of them does primarily consulting, although we all consult on centres. So we don't just do design of products to sell to people. We do custom centres. You come to us, you talk to us, we'll fit out your entire centre. We'll choose the furniture for you. We'll walk you through all the steps. We'll be with you the entire way. We'll even go up to the centre and help you set up the furniture, be there to make sure it's all set up just perfect. And part of the thought process of the designers as we're designing it is I want someone to walk into a centre, look at a piece of furniture and say, I could have that in my house and I'd be really happy to have that in my house as an adult piece of furniture, not a child's piece of furniture. I want that. That's what I want them to think. I want them to walk in, say, I want that in my house, because that's what's going to make them send that child to the centre. That's purely from the trying to get more customers perspective. But I firmly believe that if we do that, we're not just creating good furniture, we're creating great experiences for the kids in those childcare centres.
Sorry to interrupt. This won't take long. Subscribe to the show and you'll never miss another one of these amazing episodes. Right, back to the show. I think that's really smart, and it hits on some of the consumer psychology, what we know about how people buy, where they're not necessarily sure of what the intrinsic attributes of a product or experience is. So with Early Childhood Centre, ideally you would stand next to the teacher for a week and see how they teach and see what they do with little Johnny, right? That's ideal, but no one can do that. And if you put cameras in, you have all sorts of problems. So what's the next best thing? Well, you can talk to the teacher. That helps with some of it. But sometimes it's the subtle, unspoken cues. And furniture is one of those cues. Is the furniture good looking? Well, that's going to depend on what the version of parent thinks furniture should look like. And if their home looks a certain way and this childhood centre looks a similar way, then you're speaking this unspoken language about my child here is just like my child at home, except someone different is looking after them.
Correct. And also, if you think of it in terms of mimicry, humans do mimicry a lot across a whole bunch of things. People turn into each other when they're attracted to each other, etc. They copy similar hand motions. We do the same with furniture. We take we all have our favourite furniture designers, and we take those cues from that and we go, let's see what we can use from that in an early childhood piece and see how that affects. And you know that the parent's going to come in and go, that just looks great, I love that. And then that's where their heart's going to be.
I'd also like to add on that, we're talking on the parents and the adult. One of my big focuses as well, I think children, when they walk into a centre, they may not look at our furniture pieces and they're not going to make a comment and look up to mum or dad and go, wow, that chair is amazing. but what I'd like to think is, all geniuses are created from the experiences that they have, and artists and creators, it's all about the experiences they experience in life. So, why don't we give them some great looking pieces of furniture that they may not realize it at the time, but subliminally they'll be soaking all of that up. And that's just helping the future from a design and from a creation and an artistic point of view. The centre is all part of the education process as well. I like to think that our furniture can be contributing to that education as well.
You're so right, and I think it's all of those little details that actually make up the bigger picture that New Zealand can be better when we relook at things and say, well, what's wrong with the humble school chair? Like, I remember those chairs that they were in different colours, they were plastic, but sometimes the rivets would come undone and they would rip your shorts, or if you went too back in them, your butt hang out the end. But the best part about those chairs, and I don't know whether yours is where yours sits on this, you could find a fulcrum of balance that the teacher hated. You could lean back on it and you could put your life at risk. But if you could just balance it right, your mate next door to you would go, oh, how did you do that? And sometimes it required a little bit softer lino at the bottom. So what are all the things that help the child play with your furniture, but also prevent the kind of health and safety disaster that we all grew up with?
We're in different times now, that's for certain.
Oh, look, I think we still use very heavy material. I'll give an example again. We'll go back to that chair, for example. We use it's a little bit techie talk, but we use 1.4 mil wall as far as the steel thickness is concerned. It's still a very thick piece of steel that's welded together. So when you put your life in the balance and lean back, I would have more confidence in you doing that on one of our little stacking chairs than what I would on, dining chairs and any other furniture place where you can buy chairs from. I think our little stacking chair will hold up better. Because
we do that to it. I suppose that's the answer, isn't it? Is that when we build this chair, I just earlier on, one of the engineers came in that was doing a prototype for me, and I looked down at the seat and there was a dirty, great big footprint on the seat. And I said, what happened here, Bruce? And he goes, oh, I stood on it to make sure the tabs were going to hold. And this guy's 90 kilos. So we test things as much as we can.
What is the finishing element to it? Like, I looked at the hideaway chair on your website, and when you're looking on a website, it's tough to see whether something's going to last, because you're just looking at it in 2 dimension. You'd know a lot more about it because you're seeing it in 3 dimension. What are all the details I'm missing when I'm looking at that chair?
Yeah, so that chair was actually a collaboration. So it was with the childcare centre group and some designers up in Auckland. This is pre-Starex having their own design team. And they've actually got together and we collaborated with them to come up with the design of that chair. Yeah, that was quite a challenge, being able to press. We traditionally have always pressed plywood. So there's limits to how far we can go, and that particular chair is definitely pushing our limits with pressing ply. Basically, we're using glue, laminating the glue up. We've created jigs that then go basically into a homemade press that we use a car jack to crank down one end to the other and basically squeeze it together, and we let it dry for 24 hours. So yeah, there was work involved in that from a drawing it, basically cutting the shape. We basically, when we pressed that chair, the panels actually were already pre-cut, so that when it pressed, it came out pretty much in its shape. So there was very little post-finishing work that was required.
It just looked amazing, like the angles on it. It reminded me, like what you just said before, Daniel, about what the furniture is that you like at home. Like I like the Eames chair look. Yeah. It reminded me of that, and I wondered, wow, if I saw that in an early childhood centre, would that subliminally influence that? Actually, I think my kids could play here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that going back to your previous questions about what are the small differences or the small details that we put into something that you might not notice, and I think the answer to that really is that we have a team of absolute champions here, experts in their field in terms of joinery, engineering, and then the design team and planning and the customer service and the finishing. And each one of them is dedicated to making a product that's just exemplary and comes through the wash so clean it will last for years. Another factor is that early childcare care centres, and especially now in the current times, clean their products absolutely rigorously multiple times a day with a solution of bleach. Now, most home products never have to get put through that. So we have to make sure that all of our products go through that. Whenever the design team's going through, we're relying heavily on the expertise of the joiners and the engineers and their little tweaks that they don't even tell us about sometimes. Oh, we just changed this a little bit. You have to really drag it out of them. What's going on here? Oh, we just changed this a little bit so that it works a touch better, it's a touch faster.
And on that's where a big change in material. Since 2006, anyway, when I first bought the business, we manufactured our furniture from clear lacquered plywood or MDF. And I really worked out by about 2010, I found this product, which was a high pressure laminate that was laminated to plywood. And I realized that that's definitely a way to solve this durability plus adding aesthetic life to the product as well, purely because of that cleaning. I mean, anything that you paint and lacquer, like when we sent out our products back in 2006, within about 2 years, it already looked probably the 25 years that it was going to last for. So we had to kind of spin that a bit and just get a little bit more aesthetic time out of the furniture. So,
what's the sustainability story that goes across all of this?
Yeah, that's a tough one, and it's one that we really had to bite the bullet on a few years ago. Like we've always proudly New Zealand, and we manufacture everything here. And prior to sort of 2012, we had radiata plywood. It was the press that was basically milled down in the west coast of the South Island. We had our MDF. There's various plants that manufacture MDF, and that was a key thing for us as well from a sustainable point of view. It was literally taking product from our backyard. When we went down this journey, though, of trying to find a product that would be aesthetically and durability to last and have more durability to last longer, unfortunately, we couldn't find or source that type of product in New Zealand. So our next step was to source from overseas. We went through a company in Auckland called Plytech. They bring in some fantastic materials. We made sure that they follow all the strict regulations around the manufacture of panel board. All of their product, or the product that we use anyway, is all FSC approved. There's chain of supply, not to the door of our factory, but pretty much into the Port of Auckland, so we know exactly where those materials are coming from. That was a tough decision for us to move to that product, but there was a reason for it, and we were very conscious of the choices of material that we were going to use. Europe are the leaders in regards to panel board in that their regulations are so stringent and so tough that we know that the product that we receive is being made correctly and safely.
Where possible, we use all other materials sourced directly from New Zealand. We get legs made up in Whangarei, we get other bits made elsewhere. It's all New Zealand sourced where we can. We try and look at each product from a circular life cycle perspective in terms of what we do with it, how we're going to use it now, what is the waste stream going to look like. We've talked to Scion Research in Rotorua about what to do with our waste stream. We're still working on that now. And then in addition to that, we really look at our products from the long term. We've even got to the point where we're starting to think about what do we do with our products when the current customers actually got their life use out of them, but they want to upgrade anyway.
I've got some ideas for you on that.
Yeah, well, we've had a few ideas. We've thought about it's a connection thing, really. So we're looking at trying to set up a group that people can connect, either centres, play centres could tap into and possibly get, or even homeowners and parents could basically, get opportunity to take second or used goods from the centres and carry that life cycle for them. And
from time to time, we actually, and quite frequently, we get customers sending us back the furniture for us to refurbish if it's particularly old or hard worn. But we'd really like to see those pieces of furniture get another life. We don't want to see them disappear into the never never.
I guess one more element from it, one of our big things as well with this range was to conform our dimensions. So over the last 27 or 30 years that the company's been in existence, we've had lots of various designs, and they didn't necessarily all gel together and fit together. So we were very conscious of what material we're using, how much we're using, how much our length of steel is, whether we're going to be able to maximize that length of steel. Where it comes to board, we use CNCs. So we've designed some products like a little doll's house, some little ice cream cone, little things. These all come in the inside. But we've worked out ways where we could use our computer system to nest a sheet for what we need. We'll then add these additional little products into that nested sheet, not use any more, and fill it all up. So we try and maximize as much of the board as we can using up offcuts and things. So you go.
I think the opportunity for you is to, and this isn't the first time I've mentioned this to a manufacturer, is ask yourself what business you're really in. Is it selling furniture, or is it ensuring every early childhood centre gets any furniture they want at any time? And you might then decide you're in the furniture leasing business, because if you take back those atoms of timber and those assets of screws, you know how to repurpose them better than anyone else. And once you're in a leasing arrangement, then it solves that problem of that teacher saying, this has lasted too long, we really want to buy another one. It doesn't matter anymore. You just give them new stuff whenever you've got it, because you now know you've got an aggregate of hundreds of childhood centres where you shift around, and you've now got leasing contracts of 2 to 3 years. I mean, that's the telecoms model, where you don't sell handsets anymore, you sell services.
Yeah,
correct. Yeah, it's definitely something that's come across our desk, and we've had a good, strong look at it. Still a work in progress, obviously.
I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, good to see you're pushing the edges. Now, the bit I haven't asked you about, and there's probably a whole area that we could cover if Melissa was here. What would be the questions that I should have asked Melissa? Like, what's her area of expertise, and what does she bring to the business that complements what you bring to it? Probably a question for you, Matt.
That's put me on the spot.
And you're on the hook because you know she's going to listen to this.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, my wife is amazing. We've had...
You're off to a good start.
We've been very lucky in that we've learned to work together really well. And when you own a business, your business hours aren't 9 to 5 or your normal working week. You're basically consumed by it. It's there all the time. So I think the two of us together, and her especially, she's a very patient and understanding person. I think we just gel really well together. Melissa is probably the more organised of the two of us. I think she definitely keeps this factory ticking and keeps it on point.
As an example, if you ever need anything particularly well organised to a schedule, go talk to Melissa about it. You know it's going to get done, and fast. And with colourful pens and stuff like that, it's going to be good.
whereas I might sit on it and procrastinate a little bit with it.
Now I can understand why I had to really apologize to Melissa for mucking her around and you on the schedule through COVID.
And hence why I didn't. I'm the one that didn't get back to you and actually follow up. And then, exactly.
Melissa's diary is always full. And if I was going to ask her a question, it would be, is there anything you're afraid to tackle?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because she just goes for everything.
Yeah.
She will dive into any section in the business.
For example, right now she's still taking photos of our new range in our little studio that we've built ourselves, in a little photo booth. She basically did a photography course a couple of years ago, just had a real keen interest in doing that. So that's just another side element that she's taken on to contribute to the business.
It's not easy when you're a husband and wife and in a business, because there's almost no way to switch off. So you have to work out how to manage always being switched on. And it sounds like that's something that you've managed to have work for you. It also means that you can work to your strengths too. So a business that has a husband and wife partnership in it can make some very long-term decisions that other organizations that aren't family businesses can't participate in. So it actually gives you a strategic advantage. Let's get a little bit practical as we finish up here. If an early childhood teacher is listening and is thinking, I love the sound of all of this. This is the type of things I do when I teach, and these furniture people tend to sound like they're doing it with the furniture. How does someone go about buying Starex manufactured childhood centre furniture? Is it just online? Does someone come and see you? Is there a package?
No. There's obviously the website is the main element, and we're using social media a lot more as well to reach out. As far as contact, we have a business and sales manager who is Charlotte Clark. So she's available to basically go all over the country. I also travel around to meet with centres. I mean, one of the things from a design anyway that we learned, it's very hard just to do floor plans or create spaces off floor plans. You really need to visit sites sometimes to really get an appreciation for what you're creating for. Basically, unfortunately, it's not a simple solution, fitting out a centre and laying out a centre. It's a complex problem. So we have tools and we have the right questions and the right answers to give to make that process easier.
And we have multiple pathways for customers when they decide they want to interact with us. So the most simple pathway would be you can go straight to our website, and we've got all of our current products up there at the moment, although I would like to add new websites coming, new ranges coming very shortly. So
good
just
to hear.
Hold fire till you see the new stuff, because the new stuff is good. And then the second pathway would be getting in touch with our customer service team. Customer service team would put you in touch with one of our sales consultants. And that type of customer typically tends to be a little bit more, I'm going to fit out an entire centre. I'm not buying a couple of objects. I've got an empty bare bones centre. I've got some dirt or a house. I'm going to turn it into a childcare centre. We're going to take the reins. So we're going to hold your hand. We're going to guide you through that. We've got a really fine-tuned customer process, a customer journey, we call it. We'll ask a lot of questions. We'll get a lot of feedback from you. We're going to present you with some ideas. We're going to present you with a range of furniture you might like. If you've got specific requirements for a particular area, we're going to design a piece of furniture specifically for that. That's almost what we're best known for in the industry. We're going to design you a bunch of different pieces for that particular area. And then we're going to lay it out in a 3D CAD plan and send you a whole bunch of pictures and talk you through give you a proper presentation, show you where everything's placed, how it can be used, how we've made it, and then we can talk through any changes with you at that point as well.
When do they engage with you? At what stage when the building is being built should they say, okay, the roof's on now, or is it, okay, keys are handed over? What's the time that you need?
In our ideal world,
as
early as possible. We love it when clients come to us and they haven't even got an architect yet. If we can help them with the architect, we can have the best possible outcome for that centre. Because furniture and the environment that the furniture are in, they're integrated. They can't be separated from each other. If you've got a square room and you ask us to fit it out, well, we can only do so much with that room. Whereas if you come to us and say, what sort of room do I need to fit the best kind of furniture in for this environment? well, then we can really go to town. And we've got really good architects on tap as well. So we've got the full package if you need it, but come to us at any stage.
Sounds good. And I think that's almost a great note to end on. Before we do end, is there any question I haven't asked you or anything you want to add about what you're doing or that I've missed in asking you over the last half an hour?
Oh, I think that's been a very thorough interview.
We love setting up relationships with customers, and we've got some really long-term customers. I think we like setting up those relationships and seeing how they grow as businesses as they continue to bring through young minds, and we kind of try and foster their minds with our furniture and help them pick out new pieces along the way, because they're giving us feedback the whole way along as well. I think that would be the only point I'd make.
Yeah. I think for us, we see that our furniture is an investment, and it's a quality investment.
You're buying from New Zealand.
You're buying from New Zealand, and you're getting a great quality product that you're going to get well thought out design, manufacture, and years of use from.
That's fantastic. Well, I appreciate your time, Daniel and Matt, and thank you for the work that Starex Manufacturing is doing to invest in our next generation. Everyone knows that the more you invest when kids are young, it has a multiplier effect, and you're creating that ecosystem at the very earliest point to help them learn, to help them be comfortable. And any early childhood centre who is investing, who believes in your vision, is also helping those young minds grow into what we want to have, which is some really smart and adaptable minds for a very different world that they're going to grow into over the next 20 to 50 years.
Exactly.
Yep. Spot on.
Thank you very much for the time.
You're welcome. This has been a Kiwi original brought to you by the New Zealand Made team. Thanks for watching. The New Zealand Made trademark is used by over 1,200 businesses in New Zealand. The New Zealand Made team licenses that trademark. Check if you're eligible at bynz.org.nz. If you feel that someone should see this, share it with them now. Otherwise, subscribe to youtube.com/bynzmade, and we'll see you on the next episode.